I want to start this video with another question for you. When you think of breaking the game of Magic, what's the thing that comes to your mind? Drawing a whole deck in a turn? Creating a board of 16,384 goblins? Maybe gaining 16,384 life because your opponent made 16,384 goblins? They're all great suggestions, but for all the many ways to break a game of Commander, there's a common trait that they all generally share. Going infinite. It shouldn't come as a shock that to do the most broken things in Magic, you need to break the game's most integral mechanics. Infinite mana, infinite life, infinite untaps. This is a video dedicated to the most notorious cards that create these moments, and some of the ways to beat them. Some of these cards are fan favorites, while others, I'll let you decide. If you're new to Commander, feel free to use this as a general guide on must-answer cards to look out for in your next Commander game. My intention here is that most of these cards should be easily identifiable and be the poster children for cards to remove when you're playing your next Commander game. I wanted to start off and get this one out of the way. Let's go with the most popular infinite according to EDH Rec. This shouldn't really come as a surprise for many people, so I won't spend too much time on it. Thassa's Oracle here is the centerpiece of a 2-card combo that involves purging every card in your deck in response to its enter the battlefield trigger. The result of this effectively means that as it enters, you'll have no cards in your deck, therefore the devotion cost will be higher than the amount of cards in your deck, and you will win on the spot. In all of Commander, this is the most notorious combo you can do, and is also one of the most prevalent you'll see in Bracket 4 and CDH games. And you probably won't ever see it really outside of those. This card is always paired with Demonic Consultation or Tainted Pact, meaning any deck in blue and black are capable of pulling this combo out of thin air. It's a pretty universally disliked combo, especially in casual play, and it does kind of get dull after the novelty of insta-winning wears off. I would, however, like to dedicate this next section to the most fun part of the combo, where the player names a card not in their deck as part of casting Demonic Consultation. The player who casts the spell is required to name a legal card not in their deck, with some of the all-time favorites being the Most Dangerous Gamer, Sloppity Bile Piper, Invoke Despair, Borborygmos Enraged, for all the old heads out there, Patrick Star, and of course, Asmaran Amadi Canis Tinakoldakar. If you fear your opponent has this combo, your best course of action is to manage it reactively. Aside from the obvious generic counterspells, and the hate bears that target specific cards, like Surgical Extraction, which are pretty inconsistent, if I'm being honest, in their use beyond targeting this specific combo, you can look to rely on cards that go after creature abilities. Consigned to Memory and Tashana's Tidebinder are some of my personal favorites, as they can be played after the opponent has emptied their deck to turn the tables on them completely and causing them to, many times, insta-lose the game. Another more hilarious option is to simply make them draw a card. Any of the Bloomburrowed gift cards can be great for this, being able to turn them into one-shots that make the Thassa's Oracle player instantly lose because they cannot draw any more cards in their deck. You can also rely on lands like Celifid Colosseum or Group Hug effects that cause all players to draw cards. Beyond that, you can stop ETBs from going off simply from happening with cards like Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. Now to a completely different combo, and one you're much more likely to see in a casual game of Commander. This is one that is synonymous with any sweaty vampire or life gain strategy. For me personally, of all the cards I'll mention today, Exquisite Blood is hands down the one I've seen in game the most. The card that gives life to the controller whenever another player takes damage finds a home in many vampire decks alongside cards like Sanguine Bond and Veto Thorn of the Duskrose. These cards are often paired together to instantly win the game, as one deals damage when you gain life, and the other one gives you life whenever someone takes damage. Unlike the Thoracle combo we just mentioned, this instant win is far more telegraphed, which makes it somewhat more fair to handle. When you see one of the combo pieces drop, you do have a small window to remove it before the other hits the battlefield. In a recent development to this combo, also keep an eye out for Bloodthirsty Conqueror from Foundations, which acts as another version of Exquisite Blood you can look to run into. What, darling? Exquisite Bang? You know what I'm talking about? Oh, very good. The next card that is a must-answer combo staple might come as a surprise if you've never really seen this card before, It looks quite unassuming at first, but Walking Ballista here is very often used in an infinite damage combo involving life gain. The most common pairing with this card you'll find is Walking Ballista with Heliod Suncrowned, where the intention here is to give Walking Ballista lifelink to immediately deal, and then immediately take a counter off it to deal 1 damage to any target, therefore gaining life, therefore putting a counter on it. Effectively, you can generate a 1/1 counter infinitely, as long as you keep dealing damage to any target, therefore dealing infinite damage to the table. This can also be done with other cards like Archangel of Thune and Cleric class to be able to basically turn Walking Ballista into a machine gun able to knock down the whole table. Next up, let's talk about one of the cards with one of the coolest arts, in my opinion, but also one of the most deadly effects when paired with the right card. Peer into the Abyss will basically make any target opponent draw half their deck and lose half their life. This turns into an instant kill when you pair it with effects like Orcish Bowmasters, Sheoldred the Apocalypse, Underworld Dreams, any effect that effectively taxes your opponent for drawing cards. If you're in multiple colors, Razorkin Needlehead is a new card from Duskmourn able to also do this effect. Basically, these kind of cards always need to be respected, so if you see an Orcish Bowmaster or a Shelley on the battlefield, if your opponent has 7 or more mana, you absolutely need to be mindful that they could run this combo. Now, you might think that this is a targeted effect, therefore it can't end the game immediately, but what all of these decks try to do is they try to copy Peer into the Abyss to target as many opponents at the same moment as possible. This next one is an absolute classic. If you've played against Niv-Mizzet Perun, you would 100% be used to seeing him paired with cards like Curiosity. These are cards that let you draw for dealing damage. Niv-Mizzet himself here says whenever you draw a card, he deals damage to a target. Therefore, pairing these two cards together creates an infinite chain of card draw and damage so long as you have cards in your deck. People who often try and run this combo will often use Niv-Mizzet in the command zone, meaning you really need to look out should this card be your opponent's commander. In addition, it's actually not just Niv-Mizzet Perun. Foundations gave us Niv-Mizzet Visionary, which is also capable of doing this effect, because you draw cards whenever a source you control deals damage to an opponent. Even so, these two cards can even be paired together to perform the combo now too, making Niv-Mizzet a pretty spooky threat if you've never encountered him before. Next, I want to touch on one you probably haven't heard of. This is Vraska Betrayal Sting, a relatively new planeswalker of only 2 years old that has only recently started appearing as a combo finisher in Commander games. How, you might be wondering? Well, Vraska here is primarily used in decks that use double counters. So I'm talking about doubling season effects. This started in Standard when Innkeeper's Talent was printed, and people started using it to get to level 3, play Vraska Betrayal Sting, who comes in with double the amount of starting loyalty, to immediately give target player 9 poison counters. This is doubled to 18 with the same effects. You might see where I'm going with this. Vraska's Betrayal Sting in any black-green deck is an excellent one-shot kill in the late game for a troublesome player who you can't quite take out of the game. If your opponent is in Golgari colors and has a doubling season on the battlefield, Vorinclex Monstrous Raider, or level 3 Innkeeper's Talent, you absolutely need to pay respect to Vraska Betrayal Sting, because she could come down and absolutely wipe the floor with another player. Next up, let's talk about arguably one of the most notorious single cards. This is Isochron Scepter. When this card hits the battlefield, you need to absolutely panic. Often commonly used in combo shenanigans with blue decks, Isochron Scepter is a very flexible artifact that people will pitch an instant to be able to cast as many times as they want. The most common use for this card is Dramatic Reversal. So you imprint Dramatic Reversal on Isochron Scepter to effectively get infinite untaps whenever you want. You can make infinite mana, you can get infinite Magecraft triggers. Effectively, Isochron Scepter becomes your go-to source to basically run away with the game. Another common example is Narset's Reversal, where it's commonly paired with infinite turn spells. So you cast Time Warp, use Isochron Scepter in response to return Time Warp to your hand, make a copy of it, and then you do it again and again and again, and you'll get infinite turns out of that. Beyond that, you can also expect to see it in decks such as Brona, Crude Chronologist, paired with cards like Final Fortune. This is effectively a double turn card in red. Of course, Obeka, Brute Chronologist, also takes away the drawback of those kind of cards, meaning Isochron Scepter can very easily be used to take infinite turns. Basically, the moral of the story here is Isochron Scepter is absolute trouble when you see it, and will probably immediately win the player the game the moment they get the resources to be able to continually activate it. Thankfully, being an artifact, there are a lot of ways to hate this card out, but you absolutely need to address it the moment it comes down. Next up, here is a combo synonymous with Mill. This is Mind Crank, a colorless artifact that is commonly paired in mono black and Dimir themed mill decks. What do they combo it with? Well, Blood Chief's Ascension is a card that hurts players once the quest is fulfilled for having cards enter their graveyard. Mind Crank, when an opponent loses life, causes that player to mill that many cards. You might see where I'm going with this. When you've completed the quest for Blood Chief's Ascension with Mind Crank, you effectively insta-win the game because your opponents will continually mill, take damage. Mind Crank will cause them to keep milling. The other card you can look to expect Mind Crank to see play with is a Dusk Mantle Guildmage. Similar sort of effect, where an opponent basically will lose life whenever a card enters their graveyard. With Mind Crank, this is infinite mill and infinite life loss. Generally, you won't see Mind Crank beyond a mill deck, but if your opponent is running mill and they claim it is a higher powered deck, this is the key piece you need to remove to make sure they can't combo you. Next up, it's time to talk about Blink combos. Felidar Guardian is the poster child of many Blink-based combos, where it's paired with cards such as Restoration Angel, Ephemerate, and another creature, where it effectively creates infinite enter the battlefield triggers and infinite leave the battlefield triggers. The only thing you need really to pair this with is a card that, for example, Impact Tremors, damages all opponents when a creature enters the battlefield, or a variety of other payoffs. The targets for Felidar Guardian are effectively any card that is able to either enter the battlefield and flicker it. The go-to commander that you'll often see doing this combo is, of course, Abdul Adrian, particularly if he's paired with a blue-based background, because then he can look to run cards like Spark Double and Phyrexian Metamorph, which also go infinite with Felidar Guardian, to basically create infinite enters triggers and infinite creature tokens as well. When you see Phyrexian Altar on the battlefield, many of you probably already have your mind go to a pretty notorious 2-card combo involving Phyrexian Altar and Gravecrawler. This is often paired with a Blood Artist style effect where Gravecrawler can repeatedly enter and leave the battlefield to basically have infinite death triggers or infinite ETBs. Phyrexian Altar is also a little bit more than that. It pairs well with pretty much any creature that is able to leave the graveyard, such as Reassembling Skeleton. You often need to pair it with another card like Pitiless Plunderer, which is able to generate mana when a creature dies. Outside of black, you're also able to see cards like Luminous Broodmoth work very well with Phyrexian Altar. Basically, Luminous Broodmoth is able to have any creature that gets sacrificed to Phyrexian Altar return to the battlefield. But more or less, the thing you need to always be mindful of is when a Phyrexian Altar hits the battlefield, your opponent is exceptionally close to being able to generate infinite mana. Phyrexian Altar, once again, is another artifact that is able to be answered, and at any time during this moment where they're trying to generate infinite triggers, you can respond with an Abrade or some other type of artifact destruction. But the moment this card comes down, you need to be ready with an answer, because Phyrexian Altar can be the final piece of the combo to immediately go infinite. Next up, if you are in red, you might be very familiar with Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker. This is a little goblin with haste that can use his ability immediately, and what he does is copy a non-legendary creature to effectively create infinite of something. Often this is infinite tokens with haste, or infinite death triggers, so you can often see him paired with stuff such as Zealous Conscripts, Coercive Recruiter. He even gets paired with cards like Combat Celebrant and Port Razor for infinite combat phases. Kiki-Jiki is a pretty notorious card that is very much a must-answer threat when he enters the battlefield, because your opponent will never be playing a 5-mana 2/2 without some absolute nonsense to be able to combo with him. To a lesser extent, also keep an eye out for Fable of the Mirror Breaker. This is a Kamigawa card, relatively recently printed. More importantly, its backside, when all 3 of its saga modes are completed, becomes a Kiki-Jiki itself. The difference being this one does not have haste, meaning you do get a turn to deal with it, but for all the other value it gets you on its other sides, I would say it is a pretty comparable card. and very efficient in Commander. All in all, Kiki-Jiki, 100% a must-answer threat. Next, let's talk about another card you may not have seen much yet, but is also growing in popularity for combos. This is Rosie Cotton of South Lane. Would you believe me if I told you she is a very central piece in a combo involving Ashnod's Altar and Animation module? What happens when you do this? You get infinite 1/1 counters on all your creatures, excluding Rosie of course, and you also generate infinite colorless mana. Effectively, you pair Rosie with any card that is able to strip 1/1 counters and do something with them, and make a token to effectively create a system of infinite tokens, therefore infinite mana with Ashnod's Altar. This is a combo that is relatively under the radar, but is exceptionally powerful, considering people see Rosie and automatically go, oh, that's a bulk uncommon, I'm going to ignore that card, before they immediately get destroyed when Ashnod's Altar hits the table. All the cards required to do this combo are also very cheap mana-wise, meaning you can often come out with this combo out of the blue, but definitely one to watch out for. If you see Rosie Cotton, your opponent 100% knows what they're doing, and will 100% be trying to get you with this one. Sticking with the Universes Beyond theme, Nuka-Cola Vending Machine is another uncommon that might go under the radar when you first see it, however, is a crucial card in a lot of combos, actually, nowadays. It goes infinite with Peregrine Took to be able to give you infinite card draw and infinite triggers that come with that. You also create a near infinite amount of tapped treasure tokens if you're somehow not able to win the game the same turn you play these two cards together. It also, unsurprisingly, with all these tokens you create, pairs very nicely with cards such as Academy Manufactor and Crack Clan Ironworks to also generate infinite colorless mana with all these tapped treasure tokens you're making. With all these tokens, you probably won't be surprised as well to hear Grinding Station is phenomenal with this card. Basically being able to create infinite mill at the table too. One new commander that actually pairs very well with this combo that I've happened to play against recently, which is why this has really been front and center for me, is Ragost Deft Cosmonaut. Yes, Ragost here is a new Boros Food Matters commander that is very able to slot in Nuka-Cola Vending Machine and Crack Clan Ironworks into the decks already, giving you a pretty effective way to generate infinite mana. Then I absolutely would be remiss if I didn't also include Staff of Domination in this list. This is a card primarily used for its ability to untap things. Often, what you'll do is you will pair this with a creature that you want to untap to basically be mana positive on something. So for instance, the most common combo you'll see this used is with Priest of Titania with a board of elves. Basically, when you do this, if you have 5 elves on the battlefield, you tap Priest of Titania for mana, 5 mana let's say, then use that mana to untap Priest of Titania thanks to the staff, untap the staff itself, and you're left with 1 mana over that you can immediately use to basically have infinite mana. Another very common use for Staff of Domination is in Krenko Mob Boss decks, where it's often paired with Skirk Prospector, another card capable of generating a lot of mana by simply throwing away the goblin tokens Krenko Mob Boss is able to make. You can also untap Krenko Mob Boss with the staff repeatedly to be able to generate more goblins than you need to sacrifice to mana, to basically have an infinite amount of goblins and an infinite amount of mana. That about wraps up some of the most common combo cards you've seen. I've tried to identify the most important card in each combo. Think of these as, if you want to shut down this combo, these are the ones you got to be targeting and removing. But I hope you found this video helpful. If you want to see more content like this, let me know in the comments. And as always, hit me up with a like and subscribe if you are interested in more Commander content like this, or just want to hear more about Magic. I love to yap about this, and I'm more than happy to yap if you're happy to listen. Till then, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.